Okay. بدأت ببسم الله في القول أولا تبارك رحمانا رحيما وموئلا وثنيت أن الحمد لله دائما وما ليس مبدوءا به أذم العلا وثلثت صلى الله ربي على الرضا محمدا المهدى إلى الناس مرسلا وعترته ثم الصحابة ثم من تلاهم على الإحسان بالخير وبلا وبعد فحبل الله فينا كتابه فجاهد به حبل العدا متحبلا أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون وقال عليه الصلاة والسلام رب صائم ليس له من صيامه إلا الجوع صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم. Alhamdulillah, first and foremost, I would like to thank all of the brothers and sisters who are attending this program. As we are aware, this is the third installment to a program that began after Asr in relation to the month of Ramadan. Mufti Farhan Sahab, Allah reward him, he began with the laws of zakah. After him was Mufti Zaid, who spoke about how to make the month of Ramadan productive. And last and least is myself. I have to speak about the laws of Ramadan. You know, the month of Ramadan, and in particular the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deals with the injunctions of Ramadan is absolutely fascinating. If you read through the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks of salah in a number of occasions. You read the Quran is interspersed with allusions to the injunction of performing salah. But when it comes down to fasting in the month of Ramadan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dedicates only one particular instance, and that's in Surah Al-Baqarah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, before He goes into the legal aspects of Ramadan, He comforts our conscience by reminding us why is it that we fast. Allah says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. This verse of the Quran is absolutely phenomenal. Because Allah doesn't directly address you and I and say, Sumu, fast, because I'm telling you to fast. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first provides a preamble where He gets us mentally prepared for the injunction that is to come. So Allah tells us, oh you who believe, fasting has been ordained upon you, number one, just as it has been ordained upon those before you. Number two, why am I fasting? لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you may adopt God consciousness and you are aware of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's not only directing us to perform the fast in the month of Ramadan, but before that He is reassuring us why are we fasting, and He tells us, don't worry my beloved slaves, what you are going to do is something that was done before. Allah is telling us that you are fasting. Do not be so saddened, so grief-stricken, and so burdened. Because what I'm telling you to do now is something that the nations before you have already done. So the first thing Allah reassures us is, this is not a feat that is unachievable. Rather, it was done by nations before you. Number two, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you may adopt God consciousness, that you can be aware of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why we fast. And I believe this is best encapsulated in a hadith where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he provides a cautionary note that, oh my followers, indeed the month of Ramadan is going to come and you're going to fast. But bear this in mind and write it in your heart. As they say in Urdu or Farsi, Aab zar se likhne se qabil, that you have to write it with gold on your heart. That رُبَّ صَائِمٍ لَيْسَ لَهُ مِنْ صِيَامِهِ إِلَّا الْجُوعِ, that the month of Ramadan is going to come and people will exert themselves, but there will be certain people who are fasting and the only thing they will get from their fast is hunger. We ask Allah to save us from among those people. You know, on a lighter note, for the younger amongst us, I don't know if you've seen, it's a very common meme. It's Peep the Toad. Anybody seen it? It's this toad with bulging eyes. So, mashallah, one person's seen it. So you have this meme of this toad who's like crying buckets of tears. And there's a message and a caption over there So you can see that this toad is in absolute distress and is crying over something. So the caption reads, "This is the look you'll get when you stay hungry the entire day, and right before iftar you find out that your fast was never accepted to begin with." Which is quite a sad scenario, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us that some people will fast, but they will not reap anything from their fast apart from hunger. And there's two ways we can look at this. One is the spiritual dimension, that I'm fasting, however I'm backbiting. I'm fasting, but I'm engaged in haram transaction. I'm fasting, but I'm lying, I'm cheating, I'm doing everything Allah's prohibiting me from doing. I will not be rewarded, rather this fast will be perhaps used against me. But more importantly is the legal aspects. And that's what I was asked and requested to discuss with you, brothers and sisters, tonight, is when the Prophet ﷺ tells us that some people will fast and the only thing they will derive from their fasting is hunger, don't think this is only a spiritual prescription, that avoid backbiting, avoid lying and cheating. Rather, there's a legal dimension to this as well. And what's that legal dimension? That there are certain injunctions that I have to abide by when I'm fasting. If I don't know what breaks my fast, or if I don't know what will make my fast disliked in the sight of Allah, then I could be fasting for decades. But I will be among those who are fasting, but they are deriving nothing from their fast except hunger. You know, they talk about a person who comes to a bus stop and he sees a long line of people waiting for the bus. And every single person in that line has his head up looking at something in the sky. Every person in the line has his head up looking for something in the sky. So this person, he wants to get onto the bus, but he sees these strange group of people just looking into the sky. When he looks up there, he doesn't see anything. So he thinks, you know what, there's either something wrong with me or there's something wrong with these people. Why not go and ask? So he goes all the way to the back of the line and he asks the person in the end of the line, brother, I got a question. What are you looking at? Because I'm looking up there and I don't see anything. And everybody else is doing it. So he said, you know, to be honest, I actually don't know. I see the person in front of me, he's looking up, so I'm also doing it. He's like, okay. So he goes to the person in front of him and he asks him, brother, what are you looking at? The person behind you is following you. He's like, to be honest, I don't know. The person in front of me is doing it, so I'm also doing it. So he said, okay, you know what? The real criminal in this entire episode is the person all the way in the front, because everybody's following him. So he goes all the way to the front of the line and the person has his neck up and he's looking at something in the sky. This person, he checks again, there's nothing there. So he asked his brother, he's like, brother, look, I look in the sky, I don't find anything. Everybody in the back of the line, they're looking in the sky just because you're looking in the sky. What are you looking at? He's like, I don't know, I have a stiff neck. That's why I have my neck up and everybody behind me, mashallah, is just following me blindly. When the month of Ramadan comes, we're fasting, everybody else is doing it, mashallah, I will also do it. What breaks my fast? I don't know. I see the person in front of me, he's fasting. And a person will tell you that it doesn't break your fast. So we have to educate ourselves on the spiritual dimension of fasting, but equally important is the legal dimension. That what will break my fast? What do I have to avoid while fasting? So inshallah, with that in mind, we'll cover some essential, fundamental rulings in relation to the month of Ramadan and fasting. And you can thank me for my beautiful graphic design skills later on, inshallah. Okay, so the types of fasting. First and foremost, you have to remember that fasting in the month of Ramadan is only one among a large list of other types of fasting. Because we're not only instructed to fast in the month of Ramadan, we have to fast outside of Ramadan as well. And that's something, mashallah, Mufti Zaid explained right before Salah, that it's a sad fact that we've limited our fasting only to the month of Ramadan. And I'm not addressing anybody here besides myself. I'm the number one culprit over here. That besides the month of Ramadan, it's as though I am not allowed to fast. So remember, there are categories of fasting. Number one is fard. The fasting that I have to do is the month of Ramadan. That is fard, and that is something, inshallah, we will discuss in more details later on. Number two, wajib. There are certain fasts that I have to do that may not be fard, but in terms of practice, it is necessary for me to do that is outside of the month of Ramadan. What are they? You have to make up the missed fast of Ramadan. So for instance, in the Ramadan, for some reason, I couldn't fast. I have to make that up. And it is necessary for me to make that up outside of the month of Ramadan. And other examples. A third type, sunnah. It's sunnah for us to fast on certain days. For instance, on Mondays, on Thursdays, we should try our best to fast. Or the 13th, 14th, and 15th of every month, according to the lunar calendar, which is known as Ayyamul Bid. We should take out certain days in the month of Ramadan so that we can fast. Because remember, there's more to fasting than just remaining hungry. There's a spiritual aspect and dimension to it as well. And that spiritual dimension can be tapped into outside of Ramadan. If fasting is something that prevents me from committing zina, or it's something that prevents me from consuming alcohol, then I should carry this on outside of the month of Ramadan. Number 4, nafl. Any other fast that you keep during the day. So it's not something that the Prophet ﷺ did, but I want to fast out of my own discretion just so I can reap some benefits or some reward. The last one is haram. It's haram for me to fast on 5 days. Unfortunately, we think it's haram for us to fast on 335 days. It's only in Ramadan that I have to fast. No, there's only 5 days that I don't have to fast. What are those 5 days? The 2 Eids, Eid al-Fitr, Eid al-Adha, and the 3 days of Tashriq, meaning after Eid al-Adha. These are the 5 days that even if I want to be a Junaid Baghdadi and fast, it's haram for me to fast. So mashallah, it's Eid al-Adha, and everybody's enjoying a very hefty meal. And I'm going to come with a big tasbih, with a nice robe, and I'm going to tell them that no, I'm not going to partake of this meal because I am fasting. No, that's not how it works. Sharia, Islam is of moderation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala understands that there are days for us to enjoy as well. So Eidain, the Eid of Adha and the Eid of Fitr are for us to enjoy. So let us not go to one extreme and try to be overzealous and fast on those days. So these are the types of fasting. Now, before we do anything, the most important and the most essential thing is our intention. Because a deed done with the incorrect intention can be an evidence against me. And something trivial done with the correct intention can reap me great rewards. You know, my teacher always used to give this example. Imagine you start off with a digit, 0. And then you add a 1, you place a 1 next to the 0. How much do you have? No, not on the left side, on the right side. You have a 0 because you began with a 0. You put another 1 after that, how much do you have? 0. Why? Because you began with a 0. And you continue to add on, whether it's a 9, whether it's an 8, whether it's a 7, your number is still going to remain 0 because the first digit you began with is a 0. Now you turn the tables around. I begin with a 1, and I put a 0 next to it. How much do I have? 10. I put another 0. How much do I have? 100. And you continue to add on. So if I begin with a 1, no matter how trivial or how meager the actions after that may seem, my rewards are multiplying because my intention is correct. So when we're going to fast, we have to ensure that our fasting is done with the correct intention. So fasting without intention is not a fast. In the month of Ramadan, I begin by making the intention of fasting. I have to make a separate intention for every day. I have to make a separate intention for every day. But this intention doesn't have to be verbal. That, oh Allah, I am fasting from this time to this time. No, just mentally you have to be sure that I am fasting. But what is the time limit for me to fast? So if you look at the time for intention, you have Ramadan. When do we look at? From Maghrib until midday. So I'll give you an example. This is the 4th day of Ramadan, hypothetically speaking. We pray Maghrib Salah. So beginning from now until midday the next day, meaning even after Fajr, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, whatever time, midday for the next day, I am allowed to make the intention for that fasting. So take an example. When we're talking about midday, we're talking about from sunrise to sunset, right in between. You have that time to fast, to make the intention for your fast. So let's say, for instance, 3:30 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. is 17 hours, right? And that is what you call one day, according to the time that was given over there for fasting. So the time to make the intention ends at exactly 12 o'clock. Khulasa, in simple terms, that half day, you have to make your intention before that. So assume you didn't have in the back of your mind that I have to fast. And you left out Sahri, you were so exhausted. You went to that gym that day, or you went to UFC and you wrestled a bit and now you're tired. You go to sleep right after Taraweeh and you wake up and it's like, 8 o'clock in the morning. Now you're wondering, oh my God, I never made intention. I was so engrossed in my, practices. So now what happens? Am I allowed to make intention? Yes. As long as it's not midday, you can still make your intention. Next one. What are the necessary components of fasting? There are 3 parts to fasting. Imsak, iftar, and sahur. Imsak, iftar, and sahur. What is imsak? This is the most integral part of your fasting. This is what defines your fasting. That I have to stay away from eating, drinking, and intimacy. Remember, we're not talking about the spiritual aspects of Ramadan or fasting, because as we mentioned, you have to stay away from backbiting, you have to stay away from lying and cheating, but we're talking about it from a purely legalistic point of view. So you have to stay away from eating, drinking, and intimacy. That's imsak. That's what you're going to do throughout the day. Number 2 is iftar. What do I do at the end of the day? I will break my fast. And like Mufti Zaid mentioned, we have to break our fast with dates and water. It's sunnah. MashaAllah, the first thing we break our fast with is the holy pakora, right? The first thing we have is drenched with oil. Mufti Zaid gave a good example. He says, we're not cars. We don't need oil. We have enough oil elsewhere. Inshallah, we can just break our fast with water and dates. And inshallah, you can have whatever else you want later on. And a secret, if you want to have control during iftar, my suggestion is li Taraweeh Salah. Because ask any hafiz, he knows in the back of his mind, if I eat a nice hefty plate of biryani, my Taraweeh Salah is going to get ruined because I'm going to be burping, I'm going to be confused, I won't be able to focus. So if you want to enjoy your iftar by eating less, then just tell yourself, you know what, I'll lead Salatul Taraweeh. Number 3 is sahur. And this is very important. Especially for the younger amongst us. It's, for instance, time to break, if a sahur time comes to an end, say at 4 o'clock, and you go to sleep so late at 12 o'clock, and you come home and, mashallah, some guys have nothing better to do, they'll start playing Xbox, or they'll be chilling, and they'll be, at Dunkin' Donuts all night, and they'll make it home right at 2:30, and perfect time to go to sleep. He goes to sleep. Now when his mom comes to wake him up for sahur, you can bring an elephant in the room, you can bring a drum in the room, you will never wake that child up. So for him to get up and have sahur is very difficult. But sahur is absolutely essential. So for that child, it is requested for the mother, the bare minimum. She should at least bring some dates to the bedside. MashaAllah, Badshah Sahib doesn't want to get up. But if you want, just give the child some dates or something so he can have sahur and have the barakah of sahur. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, تَسَحَّرُوا فَإِنَّ فِي السَّحُورِ بَرَكَةً. That the energy that you will gain for the rest of the day begins from sahur. No matter how meager it may seem, even if it's a bowl of cereal, no matter what it is, just have something, because Nabi ﷺ has promised barakah in fasting, having sahur before you fast. Alright, even more important, the nullifiers of fast. What will break my fast? Right? We know that certain things we do will break my fast, correct? Now what are those things? First and foremost, eating and drinking. Number 1, we're talking about anything of substance like food, water, drugs, smoking, medicine. We're going to go more into it later on, but remember, even taking medicine will break your fast. There's a separate slide on medicine, but we're talking about food, water, etc. that is taken intentionally. That is taken intentionally. Yes, it's common that on day 1 or day 2, we're still in this limbo. We're not exactly mentally, inside of the month of Ramadan. So in between, we have this habit of drinking or eating. We happen to accidentally drink or eat. Will my fast break? No, because it is done unintentionally. But a more important scenario is, my brother, for instance. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. We generally have breakfast. Everybody's asleep because of Ramadan. I happen to wake up and I see my brother is indulging in a nice bagel from Dunkin' Donuts. Now I think to myself, he's fasting. Why is he eating for? But he's doing it unintentionally. But what is my responsibility as a person who knows that is going to break his fast? What I do is, I wait to see that the food is finished before he takes the next bite, then I will warn him. And do it slowly. Don't start screaming at him from far away. What are you doing? Bichara might even choke on the bagel, have some mercy on the guy. So if he's eating, you wait for him to finish the morsel, he puts the food down, and then you explain to him. Ulama mention, if the person is in desperate, dire need, right? He didn't eat in ages, and that bagel is the reason of his survival, then you let that bichara eat. If he doesn't eat that, he's going to collapse, then fine, go ahead. All right? Another thing is, certain people, because of the work that they have, for instance, they're working in construction. It's a very difficult job. They have to eat. We're not talking about unintentionally, intentionally. If they do not drink or eat, they're going to collapse, and it can be very fatal. What do these people do? First and foremost, we should try to avoid jobs or occupations that, may necessitate for me not to fast. First duty is I don't take such a job. But without that job, if I cannot survive, or it's going to cause a lot of harm, I should try not to break my fast. But if something happens, remember, I have to start my day by fasting. And for instance, 2 hours before iftar, I'm really exhausted and I can't control myself. Then you can break your fast. Because, number one, I can't get rid of the job because that's my only livelihood. And I've tried my best and I've reached the point of crunching and breaking, then I can break my fast. But there's more to it, inshallah, we'll discuss later on. Again, if somebody forgets that he or she is fasting, then eating or drinking will not break the fast. When he remembers or she remembers, they have to stop. Remember, it doesn't matter how much you eat. Even if you've eaten your fill, mashallah, you had the whole plate, you drank as much as you could, and then you remember, your fast is still fine. Certain things are excluded. The last point, certain items are excluded. Water left over wudu. So for instance, you gargle, right? And you have some water left over. You don't need to dry your mouth so that those few drops of water don't go down. It's fine. That water that remains in your mouth, you can carry on with that. Flavor of natural miswak. We're not talking about a miswak that was injected with something and has a separate taste. We're talking about natural miswak flavor. You can put it, it's fine. Smog from traffic. You're stuck in Manhattan, traffic is heavy, and there's all this smog. Now, if I inhale that, will my fast break? No. Dust taken unintentionally while working. Remember, it shouldn't be done intentionally. If it happens unintentionally, my fast will not break. All right, next, the nullifiers of a fast, vomiting. Remember, this can get complicated sometimes. That I get sick and then I begin to vomit. Which scenarios of vomiting will break my fast? There are only two scenarios where your fast will break by vomiting. Only two scenarios. Number one, intentionally vomiting a mouthful. Intentionally vomiting a mouthful. So you're filled from sahur and for some reason you intentionally induce yourself to vomit out, then that's going to break your fast. Number one. Number two, when you vomit, no matter how much you vomit or how you vomit, intentionally or unintentionally, you re-induce the vomit inside. So you swallow the vomit back in. In that case, your fast will break. These are the only two scenarios. If the vomit is unintentional or comes out on its own, then it will not break no matter how much is it, right? For instance, I don't know, I start feeling nauseous all of a sudden. For whatever reason, the heat or because I'm in traffic and I begin to vomit. In that case, if it's unintentional, it's fine. So remember, vomiting, only two scenarios. Number one, intentionally vomiting, it's intentional and it's mouthful. One. Two, no matter how you do it, but you swallow the vomit back inside. Which most probably people won't do, right? Hopefully. The nullifiers of a fast, we're carrying on. Intimacy. To have intimate relations, right? A very tough subject. If one performs intimacy during fasting, then it breaks the fast. So we're talking about intimate relations between spouses, that definitely breaks the fasting. But what do we mean by an intimate relationship? Intimacy refers to full intimacy between two people, meaning there needs to be penetration in order for the fast to break. If they are doing any other form of intimate relations, but there is no penetration of the reproductive organs, then the fast will not break. Keep that in mind. The fast will not break if they do certain intimate actions, but there is no penetration. Minor actions with spouse are allowed on the condition that one does not have fear of full intimacy. You know, they say you give the finger, the person will grab the hand, right? So if it starts off small, it can snowball into something much bigger. When the Prophet ﷺ, he allowed a person to kiss his wife in the month of Ramadan, it's because he was a veteran, as we say. He was in charge. He knew what to do. He was in control. If bichara, a new guy comes and you tell him that you can do this, it starts like that, and before you know it, the person's going to regret it. A person actually came to the Prophet ﷺ and he complained. He said, "O Messenger of Allah, halaktu, I'm destroyed, like I'm in trouble." So the Prophet ﷺ said, "What happened?" He says, "You know what? Waqa'tu ala imra'ati." I committed intimate relations with my wife. So the Prophet ﷺ said that, "You know what? Go do this. Try to fast 60 days." The Prophet ﷺ says, the person said, "You know what? I'm struggling with one day. You want me to fast 60 days? Have some mercy on me." So he said, "Okay, you know what? If you have some money, gather it and give it to the poor." "O Messenger of Allah, I'm a bichara miskeen, I don't have that much money. What can I do?" The Prophet ﷺ, he called a companion and he told the companion, "You know what? Why don't you gather money and give it to the poor on his behalf?" The person, he says, "Kuch rahm karo yaar, have some raham on me." So the Prophet ﷺ ended up giving him the money and he was let loose. But that was a special case. That's not for all of us. Okay, we got to bear that in mind. That's a special case. Nonetheless, how about kissing? Can the husband and wife kiss one another? Yes, that's fine. Remember, as long as, number one, the person can control himself and it doesn't accelerate too much further. And number two, there's no exchange of saliva. If there's an exchange of saliva, then the fast will break. Cool, isn't it, right? All right, next, missing or breaking a fast. So we know it's sometimes difficult for us, and for whatever reason, my fast breaks or I miss a fast. So there are two things that we need to know. Qada and kaffara. What are they? Qada and kaffara. One is making up fasts, and one is a penalty that I have to do. What is qada? Qada is to make another fast in place of the other missed or broken fast. So in the month of Ramadan, if I had a legitimate reason not to fast, for instance, and I don't fast, then what do I have to do? Outside of Ramadan, I have to repeat that fast and do qada. And that is only one fast. But there's something known as kaffara. This is an expiation. That if I do something that renders a penalty, then I have to do kaffara. And what is kaffara? We'll give out the scenario of what you need to do in the time of kaffara. But generally, it's fasting 60 days consecutively. You have to fast 60 days consecutively. Qada is normally necessary in all cases where a fast is missed or broken, unless one is physically incapable of keeping a fast in the future. What does that mean? That I am unable to fast, so I break my fast. Or I'm unable to fast, so I don't fast to begin with. Then later on, I have to repeat that fast. But there are certain exclusions where I don't even need to repeat that fast. For instance, I become so terminally ill that I can't repeat that fast even after Ramadan. So in that scenario, what do I do? We're going to speak about that later. You have to give fidya. Kaffara is only necessary in certain times. Alright? Qada and kaffara are two separate entities and must be performed individually. Alright? So assume that I missed a fast, I have to do the qada. But if kaffara is necessary, I also have to do the kaffara over and above that. Okay, so what is kaffara? Kaffara, people understand what kaffara means so far, right? When I'm saying it's an expiation for a mistake that you do. Kaffara is a penalty for breaking one's fast. If I break my fast, I have to give a kaffara. It may refer to one of the following penalties. Meaning that in order for me to expiate, what do I have to do if I break my fast? So for instance, I'm playing basketball in the middle of the day and I'm thirsty, very thirsty. But I'm not so thirsty that I'm going to collapse. And who said you have to play basketball? Clever Jack goes right before, it's like steaming hot outside and he's playing basketball. But I drink water anyways. If I intentionally drink water and I don't need to, then now I have to give kaffara. When I have to give kafara, how do I do it? Number one, fasting 60 days consecutively. Keyword consecutively. I have to fast 60 days in order without missing one day in between. If I miss one day in between, I have to start again from day one. So even if you make it to day 58, and you're like, you know what, I can't hold this anymore, and you break it, you have to start again from day one. So understanding the veracity, the heaviness of kafara, remember, we should try our best to avoid scenarios. And again, our deen is not difficult. You may say 60 days consecutively, why is it so harsh? This is a penalty. If the person cannot continue his fast, then you have qada. That's a completely separate scenario. But assume that the person, he cannot fast 60 days. What does he do? Then he feeds 60 individuals who are needy. He feeds 60 people who are needy. Assume that I cannot fast. Then what do? I'll feed 60 people individually. Alright? When is it necessary to give kafara? When do I have to give kafara? The penalty of kafara is only given in the following scenarios. What are the following scenarios? Breaking a fast intentionally by eating or drinking, or intimacy, only relations between two people necessitates kafara. Hope you understand the next part. Self-induced intimacy does not require a kafara. If I have to spell this out, masturbation. This is something we should totally avoid. Masturbation should be something that's not a quality found in Muslims to begin with. People may say, what's the harm in that? Number one, this is something we should avoid simply because one thing can lead to another. And a person can't tell me that I'm going to be by myself. Pornographic material is generally involved as well. The amount of harm that can do to a person's psyche, the amount of harm that can do to a person's spirituality is something which can, in certain cases, be irreparable. So we should completely avoid that. All right? That's something that hopefully need not be stressed upon. But if for whatever reason a person has this weakness and he's trying to cure this weakness and he masturbates, he or she masturbates, does he have to or does she have to give kafara? No. You just have to give qada. Is that clear? So if a person masturbates and he or she breaks the fast during Ramadan, there's no kafara, but there's still qada. So that's what's meant by self-induced. I don't know, I was feeling maybe that would have been quite self-explanatory, but just to be clear on it. If a person misses a fast completely, or the fast is broken out of need, then there's no kafara. If the person has a legitimate reason to break his fast, then again, there's no kafara. There's only qada. If a person performs intimacy unintentionally, for instance, he forgets that it's Ramadan, or a perfect case is he didn't know Ramadan starts. You know, it's a bit confusing. Is this the first day of Ramadan or not? And he doesn't know about it, or he does it unintentionally. He's unaware. Then your fast, you don't have to do kafara. But even though you don't do kafara, your fast breaks, and you have to do qada. Is that clear? You have to repeat that one day. In all cases, when a fast is missed or broken, it is necessary to make qada of it as well, whether there is kafara or not. Remember, if I am very weak and I break my fast, yes, I don't have to give kafara, but I have to do qada. I have to do what? I have to do what? Qada. Is that clear? So just because I don't have to give kafara, I have to do qada by repeating that fast whenever I'm able to do so. Nice little bird. Medical items that do not break one's fast. Now this is a very important section, and I would advise everybody to listen attentively, because this is something people ask very frequently. That which medical items will break my fast and which medical items will not break my fast. And the most frequently asked question is, what about injections? Any sort of injections or shots will not break your fast unless they're taken directly in the abdominal area, in your stomach, in the area of your stomach. If it's anywhere else, for instance, you get a flu shot or you take out blood, your fasting will not break. This includes normal medical injections, intravenous injections, IV drips, vaccines, etc. Eye drops, ear drops, oils, creams, lotions, all of these, they will not break your fast. Remember, the main idea is something has to get into your stomach or to your brain or your head through the nostrils, through the mouth, or any of what you call al-manfadh al-mu'tabar. So for instance, I have a bad habit of smoking, so I take nicotine patches. Will that break my fast? No. Why? Because it doesn't go directly into my stomach through the nostrils, through the stomach, or through the rectal area. Note, swallowing one's own saliva or anything already inside, such as mucus, does not invalidate the fast. So if I swallow my own saliva, then my fast will not break. So these are medical items that do not break one's fast. Things which are not injected directly into the stomach, that are not taken through the mouth or through the rectal area, such as injections, etc., they won't break my fast. So for instance, I need to test my blood sugar. That's going to come later on. That's not going to break my fast. Medical items that do, keyword do, they do break one's fast. Normal medicine. I get sick and I want to take a Tylenol pill. That will break my fast. Orally, like tablets, capsules, syrups, etc. If taken due to a sickness or need, the fast is invalidated, and again, qada is necessary. However, kafara is not necessary. Number 2, injections directly into the abdominal area. We spoke about this already. If I take it directly into the stomach area, then what's going to happen? My fast will break. Because why? It's going directly into the stomach area. Medicine fed through the nose to the stomach. If they have to put something through the nose into the stomach, that's also going to break my fast. Nasal and oral sprays, inhalers, and medications break one's fast as the medicine reaches the throat or further down towards the digestive tract. So, for instance, I need to take my inhaler, asthma inhaler. I'm going to have a separate slide on that. But will that break my fast? Yes, that will break my fast. Because I'm inhaling something that reaches my throat. It doesn't necessarily have to get to the stomach. If it gets to my throat and it passes, it will be in the ruling of breaking your fast. So you may argue that when I'm taking an inhaler, then it doesn't reach my stomach. It's not necessary for it to only reach your stomach. If it passes your throat, that's enough to break your fast. Steams and smoke. Any sort of steams or smoke taken in intentionally breaks one's fast. For instance, I have Vicks. If I take the Vicks on its own, it won't break my fast. But if I put it in boiling water and there's the steam from the Vicks, then it has a certain substance because of which my fast will break. Air does not break one's fast. That's quite straightforward. If you have certain medication that induces oxygen into you, then your fast will not break. Excused persons. Who will be excused? Oh my God, I didn't realize it's already 9 o'clock. I have another 7 slides. Excused persons. Who's going to be excused from fasting? Refers to people who may skip their fast and make them up later. Right? So you have sick people. People who, due to certain illnesses, they cannot fast. People who are traveling. If you're traveling, you do not need to fast. If you are traveling, you do not need to fast. If you want, you can fast. Remember, we're talking about traveling before the fast comes in. So for instance, tomorrow I want to go to Baltimore, or I want to go to Chicago, and I want to drive down. So if I'm fasting, if I'm traveling, I don't have to fast. But it's necessary for me to begin travel before the Fajr time. I have to begin my travel before the Fajr time. If Fajr time comes in already, and it's like 8 o'clock in the morning, and I say, you know what, I'm going to travel right now, so I don't have to fast, that's incorrect. So your travel has to start before you begin fasting. And obviously the days after that. Pregnant or breastfeeding women, there's some conditions for that we're going to do. Menstruating women, women who are going through nifas. Insane, people who have certain who are mentally sick, then for them they're going to be absolved as well. In normal cases, all sane adult Muslims must fast. Remember, adult. We shouldn't be so strict on our children that, they're 6 or 7 years old and we force them to fast. Yes, if you want them to get accustomed to fasting, make them do partial fasting, that you have to fast until 10 o'clock or 8 o'clock or any time, just so that in the morning, not at night, at the morning, so that they can try fasting by skipping a meal. An adult has to fast the entire day. But if there's a child, a parent shouldn't force the child. If he or she wants to get used to it, then begin slowly. Specific scenarios. We're speaking about the person who's sick. Sick people may leave out their fast and make them up later if they fear that their health may worsen, whether it'll be prolonged or delay recovery. So if I'm sick and I know if I'm going to fast, my sickness is going to be delayed, then I can avoid fasting. If the sickness comes in before Fajr time, so for instance, it's not even time for Fajr yet, and I feel very sick, I should avoid the fast. I should avoid beginning my fast to begin with. But if the sickness comes in after the fasting commences, then I break it, I have to do qada. If the patient requires a medicine, the delaying of which may worsen their health. So for instance, I need to take a medicine during the month of Ramadan. If I can delay it, fine. But if I don't take it in the month of Ramadan, my health is going to deteriorate, then I can avoid fasting. In all scenarios, making up the fast is necessary. So remember, if I take some medicine and I break my fast, I have to do what? I have to continue. I have to repeat them later on. But remember, for instance, I'm fasting and I feel very weak and I take a Tylenol pill. So now my fast is broken. Can I go and indulge myself in a nice feast? Principally you can do that, but it's more meritorious, it's more virtuous that I continue to fast anyways. It may be more difficult, but inshallah you'll be rewarded. That I took a Tylenol pill and I'm feeling a bit better, but my fast is broken right now. Do I continue fasting the rest of the day? It's not necessary, but it's more meritorious and it's more virtuous. Pregnant or breastfeeding women. For them, remember, it should be out of fear for their own health or the health of the child. Unnecessarily, they shouldn't avoid fasting. If her pregnancy is in the beginning stages and she can manage, then that's fine. If she's breastfeeding and she's not fearful for herself or the child, then that's fine. But if they fear that the health of the child or herself is going to be problematic, then they should they don't have to fast. I'm going to go through the rest quite quickly. Aged and terminally ill people. For them, if you're aged, it refers to any person who has reached an age where fasting causes highly adverse effects to his or her health, leaving the person incapable of fasting. Okay, I think he's tired as well. So what are you talking about being elderly? Being elderly isn't a person, mashallah, who's 30 years old but has to sit in the back and listen to the lecture because they're sick or tired or they just have nothing better to do. No digs intended. But it refers to a person who is actually elderly and has, an inability to continue fasting. We shouldn't bluff ourselves and fool ourselves that, mashallah, now that I'm married, I'm officially old. No, you have to be physically incapable. Terminally ill people, who are they? Refers to any person who, due to an illness, is now incapable of fasting. Key point, okay, I'll go back quickly. Key point is doctors should be consulted in order to see if one qualifies for fasting or not. Remember, it's preferred that it's a Muslim doctor, and in generally it should be a Muslim doctor, but if you can find a Muslim doctor, ask any doctor. And if he signs, gives you the check to carry on, that you're terminally ill, then that's fine. If you have a running nose, no, you're not terminally ill. Neither am I. It is important to inform the doctor about the timings of the fast, because if the doctor doesn't know about what fasting really means, he may think that you're terminally ill because he thinks you have to fast the entire month without eating at all. If it's a non-Muslim or even a Muslim doctor, first you have to explain what it means to fast, and then you get the prescription not to fast. So, assume I'm terminally ill and I can't fast. So what do I do? Such people are excused, but they have to give a fidya. So imagine I'm very ill and I cannot fast. Then for every day that I skip out, I have to give fidya outside of in Ramadan or after Ramadan, whenever. Preferably, if you give it in Ramadan, it's fine. I missed that one day, I have to give fidya. What is fidya? The same thing you give for sadaqatul fitr. That you pay, I think nowadays, they estimate it to $10, right? They estimate it. It's not exactly, but they estimate it to $10 for every fast that you miss. Who do you give it to? A poor person is any individual who is eligible to receive zakah. If the person is eligible to receive zakah and you're terminally ill and you need to pay fidya for your zakah, you can give it to that individual. If one gains strength to fast later. So for instance, I was sick and I couldn't fast the entire month of Ramadan. Or I'm terminally ill and I think that for the rest of my life I cannot fast. So I give my fidya. But miraculously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cured me. In that case, is the fidya that I gave sufficient? No. Right now I have to repeat all the fast that I gave and inshallah you'll get reward for the fidya. Only 3 more slides, inshallah we'll finish. What about a person who has diabetes? So checking blood sugar level is permissible while fasting. If you need to check your blood sugar level, that's perfectly fine. That won't break your fast. Taking insulin will not break your fast, unless you inject it directly into the stomach area. If you inject it directly into the stomach area, then your fast will break. So, if I'm diabetic, what do I do? If possible, take enough food at the time of suhoor so blood sugar remains stable and keep the fast. If at any time fasting becomes too difficult, again, I can break my fast and all I have to do is qada. If a doctor has ruled that fasting will cause extremely adverse effects to one's health, then one qualifies as a terminally ill person. So if I'm diabetic, but it's so bad that my blood sugar level needs to be, taken care of during the day as well, otherwise my health will deteriorate, then I am terminally ill. In that case, I can give fidya. Specific scenarios. A person who has asthma. If I want to use an asthma pump, an inhaler, can I use it? No. My fast will break. So, ideally, I should try to use the inhaler before I begin my fast and after I break my fast. But if I have an asthma attack during the day, again, I can break my fast. And once I break my fast, I have to do qada later on. But if a Muslim doctor who knows my scenario and says that, no, I cannot stay the entire day without using my asthma pump, then again, you fall under terminally ill, that I cannot fast because I have to take the inhaler, then I can give fidya later on. Other scholars are of the opinion that using an asthma inhaler doesn't break your fast. If you are consulting that scholar, then that's fine. But again, I'm presenting the opinion as per Hanafi fiqh and what our ulama have explained, that using the inhaler or the asthma pump will break your fast. So if, as an example, I get an asthma attack during the day and I use the pump, now I break my fast. So if I want, I can continue fasting the rest of the day, just like I said with regards to taking medicine. What are things which are makruh, which are disliked? Chewing any flavorless item, right? If you just have this habit of chewing, then that's makruh. If the item has a flavor like gum or a flavored miswak, then it even may break the fast. If it's a natural flavor in the miswak, it's fine. But if it's some miswak induced with bubblegum flavor or something like that, nowadays anything can be invented. They do something like that, then your fast can potentially break. Okay, very common question. Can I brush my teeth? Well, ideally you should brush your teeth before Fajr time so you can save the rest of the ummah from certain trials and tribulations. So you should try to do that before the Fajr time. But for some reason I forget, and now I want to brush my teeth during the day. They say brushing my teeth with toothpaste will only break my fast if I swallow the toothpaste. If I don't swallow the toothpaste, and I use such a small amount that there's no fear of even swallowing, then it's fine. It's not even makruh. Some ulama mentioned that I can brush my teeth with a very small amount, and there's no fear of it going down, then it's not even makruh. But just to avoid it, we should try using miswak and brush our teeth before and after fasting. Tasting food. This is something very common. Our mothers and our sisters at home, they know that if the food doesn't have the perfect amount of salt or the perfect amount of food, then qiyamat's going to start at home. It's going to be problematic. Husband or son is extremely hungry during the day and he needs to make sure the food is perfect. Then the sister can try out the food, taste the food. Taste the food meaning you just try a bit of the salad, not give the burger a bite and see if it's meeting the threshold of satisfying. Gathering up saliva and swallowing it. So if I feel somehow that's satisfying and I gather all the saliva in my mouth for that particular point and I swallow it, my fast won't break, but it's makruh. Using too much water when cleaning the nostrils or gargling when making wudu. Because if I gargle with too much water, it potentially can go down and break my fast. Fighting, arguing, backbiting, lying, swearing, again, these pertain to the spiritual dimensions of fasting. Again, there are so many things that we can speak about, but unfortunately time does not permit. I would have loved to go into much more detail. This is actually part 1 of a 3-part series in respect to Ramadan. Inshallah, if we do get another opportunity, we'll speak about it. And again, remember, we just want to bear in mind the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, رُبَّ صَائِمٍ لَيْسَ لَهُ مِنْ صِيَامِهِ إِلَّا الْجُوعِ, that certain people will fast and they will reap nothing from their fast apart from hunger. This can refer to people who spiritually deprive themselves, but it can also refer to somebody who doesn't understand the masail, yet he breaks his fast. And so far we tried to cover the fundamentals, and the essentials of fasting during the month of Ramadan. I apologize for saying certain things. If people did feel offended, I do apologize. I also apologize if certain things I mentioned or I didn't mention and you wanted to hear. That's why inshallah we'll have a Q&A session. I think Mufti Zaid can come and assist me with this as well. Mufti Farhan, mashallah, he's busy elsewhere. Whatever, we had, what time is Salah? 9:45. So we have roughly 20 minutes for a question and answer session, where if you have any questions pertaining to the first part, which was related to zakah, inshallah, if I am aware of the masail or Mufti Zaid is aware, we can try to cover that. And then in terms of productivity or the masail of Ramadan. Yes.
If you get a miraculous cure
Yeah.
for a terminal illness, does it have to be in the month of Ramadan, or if it came, let's say, a few months after Ramadan,
Yeah.
you have to?
Yes. So for instance, in the month of Ramadan, I fell ill, terminally ill. And after the month of Ramadan, 1 month goes and I'm still terminally ill. And I'm paying fidya for every month, every day. Then on the third month, I get cured. Now I have to repeat all of the fasts that I missed in Ramadan, even though I gave the fidya. Yes. No, not for the 50. It's not for, this two different things. One is kafara. If I break my fast intentionally, then I have to give kafara, which is fasting 60 days consecutively. And if I cannot do that, I'll feed 60 people or feed one person 60 days in a row. We're talking about a person who, for instance, is terminally ill and he gives fidya. What does fidya mean? For instance, I'm sick, right? For the 30 days of Ramadan, I have to pay fidya for each day of the month, meaning only 30 days. Yes. Oh, I thought you were a follow-up question to him.
If somebody has to make 60 days of consecutive fast, and during those 60 days, one of the days where you cannot fast comes up.
Yes. That will make you have to restart again. That's why they say you should avoid, and it's only 5 days. It's the Eid of Fitr and the Eid of Adha and the Ayyam of Tashriq, the days of Tashriq. So you have plenty time in between. Another masala I completely forgot to mention is assume I have kafara necessary throughout a number of months. So for instance, this month, I broke my fast purposely, and I have to give one kafara. And I never did kafara during the month, and during the year, and next Ramadan comes, and I purposely break it again. And the month after, the Ramadan after that, I also do it. So does this mean I have to do 3 kafaras? No. 1 kafara will suffice for all of the days before. But if after I give my kafara, the Ramadan after that, I purposely break my fast again, I have to do kafara. It's not that you do 1 kafara once in your life and it will suffice you for the rest of your life. It's just kafara for whatever happened before it, it will suffice. Whatever happens after that is a different scenario. Anything to add on, Mufti Sahib? Yes. Okay, right side. Okay.
So just a question on 401k, right? Quran also spoke about investments becoming, if you have investments that are available right away, right? So 401k investments aren't available to you until you're like 59 years old.
Sure, sure.
And that's the concept of the US government penalizing you if you take it out earlier.
Yeah.
So is 401k is applicable?
Well, okay. You want to say something about it? Well, basically, 401k, I'm not going to go into the details. Firstly, because I feel incapable of going into details. It's Mufti Farhan's kind of area. But it just depends on the relationship you have with that money. Some ulama say it is zakatable because you are in possession of it. But I think there's much more details to it. Like, so for instance, it depends on, because if you're not allowed to take it, are you, right? Because of which it seems that you're not in possession of it, right? But they also say that it's taken from your own wealth. In certain scenarios, it's taken from your own wealth. So I wouldn't be able to give you the exact details of it. I think you'd ask Mufti Farhan about it, but as far as I'm aware, you would have to give zakat on it accordingly. So for instance, you have certain amount of money in your 401k, that will be added to your overall investments that you have to pay. What's up? You want to add something to that?
From what I know, regarding 401k, you can either pay it all together once you take out the 401k at the age of 59, or you can pay it as soon as it comes due every year so that you don't have a large amount waiting for you later on.
So it'll be based on if you do it on the 59 and a half, right? I mean, that's being conservative. That you're
but by the time you reach 59 and a half, the amount is going to be that much larger.
Yes. Yeah. Sure, sure. Yeah. Sure. That won't break your fast if it doesn't go through the abdominal area or it doesn't go through the mouth or the rectal area. Remember, key point is if it goes through your hand, no matter what injection you put inside, then your fast won't break. I think you can use this because that way I got the mic right here. Yes, sorry. So what I just mentioned right now is if I messed up on a few Ramadans, then that one kafara that I do, even if it's after 10 years, it will cover all of the mistakes that I did for the 10 years before that. So if you know you're going to be so sick that you can't fast, then even before you start fasting, you're exempted from fasting. You're going to? Okay. Yeah. You're going to be like incapacitated throughout the day. I mean, if it's such that you're going to be bedridden, that's a different scenario. But if you feel that you won't be able to go out and, enjoy yourself or play basketball or something like that, that's different. But if you feel you're going to be bedridden out of the illness, then obviously you're going to be exempted. But if it's just like basic functionality that I wouldn't be able to go to work or something that involves a lot of movement, then no, that's not enough of a reason to just not go to, just to be exempted from fasting. Anything to add on? All right, I saw a question on this side. For zakat?
No, fidya.
Oh, fidya or zakat? Zakat, no. Zakat has to be given to the poor. Like Mufti Farhan mentioned in the beginning, the key word is tamlik. You need to make the person in charge. Make the person an owner of the money that you give. So by giving money to the masjid, you're not really making anybody an owner. So that's not enough. I saw a few hands on this side. Questions? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Same thing. The idea is to, keep the water in your mouth. If you gargle too much, then the potential of the water going down is there. So it's makruh and you should try to avoid it. Just do the bare minimum. Just let the water come in and out. That's it. Not too much. Generally, they say you should avoid sleeping after Asr for fear of missing the Maghrib Salah. But generally, it's a long discussion, but it's not that serious of an issue. If you need to sleep, go ahead and sleep. The idea that it's makruh to sleep after Asr, again, it's either for fear of missing out the Maghrib Salah. If you know you're going to get up and somebody can wake you up, then that's fine. But ideally, after Asr is the time for ibadah and getting ready for fasting, breaking your fast. Yes. So if you do it accidentally or you do it intentionally. If you do it intentionally, again, so if you, for instance, every single day of Ramadan, you broke it intentionally, that one kafara will suffice for every single day. So whenever you do one kafara, whenever it is, it will suffice for all of the Ramadan fast that you messed up before. And remember, kafara is only for breaking a Ramadan fast. If I do a sunnah fast, or if I do a nafil fast, and I purposely, intentionally break my fast, then I don't have to give kafara. Okay? Make that clear, because we don't want people to do 60 days fasting because they're doing sunnah and then they break it. You don't have to do that. Anything to add on, Mufti Sahib? Okay. Yes. Well, it depends on what jewelry you're talking about. Is it like emeralds or diamonds? Or are you talking about gold? You have to give zakat on gold. There's zakat on that. Yeah. On the stock, yeah. Well, there's a difference of opinion among the scholars. Do you put into consideration the cost price, or do you consider the price on the market, or the price that you bought it? So, I mean, it just depends on the scholar you ask. I personally haven't been faced with this question, so I just tell people, just ask your personal scholar and get an answer. I don't want to tell you one opinion. And so you would have to evaluate it either based on the cost of it, or the market price, or how much you bought it for. But you're going to have to ask your local scholar for that one. Where's Mufti Farhan when you need him? Sorry? It's in the hadith that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, says you have to give 1/40th, right? So it comes from the Quran and hadith that you have to give that amount, 2.5%. Anything else? MashaAllah, Mufti Zaid gave us such a beautiful talk on productivity of Ramadan. If the brothers have any questions. Oh yeah, I forgot. How will the sisters ask their questions? Oh, they don't have any questions, MashaAllah. They're very intelligent people, right? What? Okay, yeah, if they can write down their questions and maybe we can write an answer or anything, inshallah. So I do feel bad about that if they do have any questions. But I'm assuming, MashaAllah, they're very educated people. They don't need any answers to their questions. They already know it. Yes? You don't have to give zakat on diamonds. It's only on gold and silver. Yes?
Understand what your work schedule is going to be like. If you are commuting by public transportation, use that time instead of sleeping, if you don't have to sleep, to get some recitation in, or at least do something productive. Try to read a book on Islamic literature, listen to a lecture or anything like that. During your lunch break, you're going to have more time than usual. Try to give some more than usual time for your dhuhr salah. Try to get some recitation in. Take a nap if it's necessary so that you feel energized later on. When you're coming back from work, same thing. If you are using public transportation, then make use of it. If you are driving back and you can't do anything with your hands, listen to something. Not everybody is going to be in a position of basically making the same schedule. In other words, some people are going to be able to make their own schedules. Some people are going to go to work later in the day and come back early in the afternoon, only for a few hours. Others are going to be working 9 to 5. Some people are going to have a very, like a night schedule, for example, right? So it differs person to person. No matter what your schedule is, the idea is understand where you can actually make use of your time. Right? No, just just recite it to yourself if necessary. Like don't be in the train and start reciting the Quran loudly and freak a lot of people out. Okay. But at the very least, when you are reciting, move your lips. If you can at least hear yourself, that is also good.
Okay. We just received a question. Do eye drops break the fast? No. If you use eye drops, that won't break your fast. So even if you use eardrops, that won't break your fast. Unless your eardrum is broken, otherwise it won't break your fast. Another question. Okay, Jazakallah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yes. So that's what I explained, that it either goes to your stomach directly or it passes the throat. So passing the throat takes the ruling of going to the stomach. So that will break your fast as per Hanafi fiqh. Because, like I said, it's not necessary for it to go directly to the stomach. Even if it passes through the throat, that's more than enough. Again, like I said, there are certain ulama from other scholarly orientations who may give a different opinion. If he consults them, then that's fine. Yes. Yeah. No. I mentioned that in the beginning, that after rinsing your mouth or putting water in your nostrils, if there's some remaining, it's fine. You don't need to take a blow dryer and dry yourself out. Another question came, if you delay a qada till the next Ramadan, do you have to give kafara? So for instance, I don't fast one day and I delay it. Do I have to give kafara? No. Qada is a separate entity and kafara is something separate. Yes. Yes. Yeah, yes. So you'd have to do your qada and then kafara of 60, because the 60 days is a penalty. Yes. You can give the money to somebody to have the food prepared for them. It's fine. But we can only go to that scenario after you are unable to actually fast. We got a question again. Is there zakat on diamonds? The brother asked that question already. No, there's no zakat on diamonds. Yes. No. You only do kafara if a fast you break in the month of Ramadan. And qada you have to do outside of Ramadan. Right? You can't do your qada in Ramadan because you still have 29 other fasts that you have to do of Ramadan. So if you break your qada intentionally, you just have to redo that again. You don't have to do kafara. Another question, just before I get to you, Tashdid, 1 second. If someone is diabetic and some days he is able to fast and some days his glucose level goes critically down and he breaks it, what's the ruling? Again, same issue. If he needs to take insulin or whatever because medically, then it's fine. He can break it because there's a need. And after he breaks it, he just makes qada for that day. But if the other days he can fast, he continues fasting. I don't know who asked that question, but I hope that answers the question. Yes, Tashdid. You talk, sorry?
If you pass by a smoker.
If it's unintentional, it's fine. Unintentional smoke that's just left from over there won't break your fast. But if you're intentionally going there to get some leftovers, then it will definitely break your fast. Yes. Any other questions? No. Yes, okay. So this is a very common question, I forgot to speak about it, that what about the 6 days of Shawwal that comes after Ramadan? And I have qada to do, for instance, 2-3 days. This is particularly for women. Women, when they go through their hayd, their menstrual cycle, they don't fast. Now when the next month comes, and I want to fast, and I have the 6 days of Shawwal, can I incorporate the two? Ulama mention, ideally you should do it separately, and they give a reasoning for that because there's not enough time, I won't be able to explain it. But if you do it, inshallah, it's expected that you'll get the reward as well. So if I keep, for instance, Monday and Thursdays fasting, and I want to do my qada on those days as well, inshallah, but my intention has to be qada. You don't make intention of the sunnah, you have to make intention of the qada. Remember, like I said, intention. So if it's Monday, I'm not going to make intention that it's my sunnah fasting and indirectly my qada will be taken care of. No, I make intention of the qada and hopefully indirectly my sunnah will be taken care of. Okay, we'll start from the right side. Is that fine?
I had a question related to zakat. If someone is accumulating his or her wealth in form of diamonds,
So if he's or she is selling the diamonds, that's different. If it's only their own money, then there's no zakat. If it's a personal asset, there's no problem with that. But if it's inventory or something that they're making money out of by selling, then that becomes normal stock in a business. But if it's a girl just happens to have a bag of diamonds somehow, however, but it's her personal property and she wants to use it, then there's no zakat in that. Okay. In the end of this is Mufti Zaid's field. No, I'm just saying basically in terms of the reward that comes in the hadith that Mufti Zaid mentioned, that by reading one harf you get 10 rewards, that is only for reciting it. There's no comprehension needed. You'll get rewards over and above that. That's not quantifiable, but by understanding you'll definitely get more rewards. You can add on to that if you want.
No, there's a separate reward for reciting the Quran even if a person does not understand the meaning. However, because Arabic is not our mother tongue, we absolutely at the very least should know the general meaning of what Allah is saying. Because a person is, praying salah for 60, 70 years and they are reciting the same surahs, but they don't know what the surahs mean. Right? So it's a sad state for anybody because Allah revealed those words for a particular purpose. It shouldn't only be left up to the huffaz and to the imam and to the scholars to know the meaning of the Quran. The whole ummah at the very least should have some idea of what Allah is speaking about. Right? One thing that I do want to mention is that usually a common question that also comes up is your fast that you have to make up don't have an expiration date. In other words, just because the next Ramadan has arrived does not mean you are no longer liable for whatever fast that you have to make up for before. It isn't the case that you have to make up for all of your missed fast of the month of Ramadan within the year before the next Ramadan arrives. It's still on your head. All right? But it's best to make it up as quickly as possible so as not to let it accumulate.
Yes, and I think time is very short. Before we conclude, I think I saw two hands over here. Just if I can take both questions quickly. Yes, I'll start with Hafiz up, yeah. 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 That will also break your fast. Like I said, if it goes through the nostrils, through the mouth, or through the rectal area. If it goes even past the throat or to the stomach, that's going to break it. Correct? Mufti Sahib? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So obviously, if he does it by accident, he won't be liable for it. It comes that anybody who has a morsel of haram food is going to be deprived of reward. But if he does it unintentionally, he just makes tawbah, and inshallah the harms of that will be gone. But his fast will still count. So if he has haram food for sahur, or if for sahur, the rest of the fast will count. But obviously, the spirituality is a completely different aspect to it. Like for sahur. Again, it will be guna, he'll get sin for it, but his fast will still count. Right? He goes to McDonald's for sahur, and for some reason he goes over there and he has that food, then the food will obviously be nourishment. He may not have the spirituality, but his fast won't break, his fast will count. Anything you need to add on, Mufti Sahib? I'm so sorry, I know we have many other questions. After Salah, we can try to cover those up. And I do apologize for people who heard this over live streaming because the questions weren't heard, but the answers were heard. But inshallah, they can put one and one together and inshallah get a two. Another thing is, I do apologize to the sisters. Maybe they couldn't get they have questions as well. So after Salah, if it's written or something, or somehow we can have a question session afterwards, that is dangerous. But if we have a question session afterwards, inshallah, we can try to accommodate them. I would like to apologize on behalf of everybody over here. MashaAllah, I do apologize. Maybe I never did a good job. Please forgive me for that. Jazakumullah khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Anything you need to add on? No.